Well, hello everybody and welcome to this Portugal calling webinar from Expats Portugal, the FAQ on the digital nomad visa, aka the D8 visa. To talk with us tonight about it is Carolina Cunha from EI, Assessoria Migratoria in Lisbon. Good evening to you, Carolina. How are you? Unmuting as we speak, I hope. Hi, Carolina.
So sorry.
No problem.
My computer happened something. Hi, hello, I'm Carolina.
It might be enjoying the public holiday, as we were saying earlier on. It is a public holiday here in Portugal today, isn't it?
My computer must be Portuguese, so he's already enjoying the Santos and so sorry.
Well, if you can smell sardines near your computer, that might be a giveaway.
Oh, he's already dreaming about the popular music and the sardines on the bread. Yeah.
Amazing. First of two public holidays this week. We've got the Portugal Day celebrations, haven't we? Camões Day as well, coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, the 10th. So yeah, but today it is all Saints something.
Corpus Christi, isn't it, as well? Today,
yeah.
A specific celebration today.
Yeah, today on the 10th, the Portugal Day of Portugal, and on Tuesday, the Saint Antonio's Day, which is the public holiday in Lisbon. So.
Oh wow! Okay, so the Sant Antonio Festa beginning in Lisbon on Tuesday as well. What a great month June is. Santa Populares, of course. So lots of fun to be had. Festas, religious festivities, everything. Something for all the family in the coming months. Thank you for being here. But given the fact that it is a public holiday today, Carolina, not so well known to our audience as Gilda, perhaps, the principal over at EI, but you made a stunning debut last time. And you're here, of course, because you are the D8 expert and you'll address a few of the frequently asked questions about it. Can you tell us a little bit about EI and where you fit in there before we begin?
Okay, sure. Yeah, so EI is a migration company where we do everything migration-wise. Me specifically, I do D8s, digital nomad visas, and D7s. But I also already have done D3, D2, D1. So Gilda's concept is for us to have expertise on the ground, on the field. So, which makes us to have a more transversal point of view within the consulates, and yeah, so I think it's very good for everyone. So, our company intends to help within the migration process, to simplify, to come closer between the consulates and the people itself. So, yeah.
And you get an amazing success rate as well, as people can find out from our business directory. And if you want to work with EI and get a discount on EI's excellent services with a really brilliant success rate of getting people here to Portugal, go to expatsportugal.com and check out the business directory. And for a discount, become a premium member. Right, Carolina, this is quite a new concept, really, the digital nomad visa, isn't it? Really, you know, compared to the oldies like the D7 and the D2, the D8, as its number suggests, I guess, is a more recent entry into the market. But it has caused quite a stir, hasn't it, worldwide?
Yes. So it came into place in November 2022, but only got actually started like in December. So up until now, we are still seeing new things every day. And it has coming on in force, so it has been working, and we have seen it being a successful up until now, all of them. So yes.
Very good. Excellent. So the success rate equally good with the D8 for EI here. Questions are already coming in, which is fantastic. And what I'd like to do is to talk about the D8 in principle and the whole process. Then we'll get to people's particular questions. And at the end of the recording, we'll also have a hands up session as well, so that we can get to people's more personal questions that they might not want to share in the public webinar, which of course is a good reason to be here on our weekly webinar from Expats Portugal. Can you go through it in the sort of technically, theoretically, somebody wants to come to Portugal on the D8 digital nomad visa. How do they begin this process, Carolina? Can you talk us through it?
So first step, reach us. So we can help you through all the process. But ahead of that, we need to first analyze if it is a suitable visa for the person. That's why we do like a consultation where I hear the person's concerns, situation, and I fit them to make sure they are a proper candidate. So we make a solid case on the visa. So a solid case is if a person fits perfectly within the legal requirements. I can also speak about them, which are the main ones are the person needs to have a remote job. So it can be either an independent worker or an employee. It's indifferent. And for each category, we have different matters. So I usually go into them with it when I speak with the person one by one. And yeah, so both of them are allowed. Second is the minimum amount that they need to earn, which is the Portuguese minimum wage times 4. So right now, 3,040 euros. It's even in their currency on the country where they are applying. So after that, we need to prove that their tax residency is outside of Portugal and that the tax residency of their company is also outside of Portugal. Those are the highlights of the D8 visa.
Okay, excellent. And yes, so people get in touch. You first to make sure they're a proper fit with the criteria you've given there. There is some confusion, I think, about whether it's a 1 year or 2 year process. Can you tell us about the differences there?
Yeah, sure. So they both exist in Portugal. The legal immigration wise shows both situations. So a 1 year, it's just a temporary visa. The person asks for the visa, is granted one, and just stays in Portugal for a year. After that year is up, is done. They need to go back to their home country. The 2-year visa, it's different, is a residency visa. This means that the person is applying, they are granted the visa, they go to the SEF appointment, they then have the permit, which is valid for 2 years, renewable for 3 more, renewable quite indefinitely, and until as long as the person still meets the requirements, and then after 5 years the person can apply for citizenship. So it's a whole different concept. One is for, I think, a true concept of a digital nomads. So if someone really wants to go back and forth within Europe or even the world. The second one is a person that wants to really establish themselves in Portugal. Yeah. So both of them take the same work. So you might as well do the residency one if you actually plan on living in Portugal. So yeah.
Thank you. So that's the distinction really between it being a working permit and a residency permit there. And we can take questions on both, of course, this evening. When it started, not so much of an emphasis on savings and accommodation, but that seems to have changed, doesn't it, since last year? So can you just reiterate with savings in the way that, you know, you have to show savings with the D7, is there a similar requirement for the D8?
Savings, you just need to show for the D7. For the D8, you will need to show bank accounts as well, but they don't establish a minimum amount to be there. So I just suggest people show their current accounts that they use on their day-to-day life, but legally, and we have not seen like a proper amount that they demand. So on that requirement.
Okay, so the emphasis is really on the multiple of the minimum working wage to show your income rather than what you've got in savings. Okay, excellent. And things have changed a little bit with the accommodation side of things, haven't they? It wasn't that important, was it, at the beginning? It was all about how much you were earning and having a job or a contract. Now it seems, although it may not be law, it seems that some consulates are asking for proof of accommodation. Can you elaborate on that for us as well?
Yeah. So since the beginning, it was mandatory to put in on the application a 4-month proof of accommodation in Portugal. But since this kind of process has been flooded, so a lot of people have been coming, and I think it's like a way of them to make people put their money where their mouth is. So they're just like 4-month rental agreement is too small of a proof. So I've seen countries where they have been declining 4 months, like one of the top of my head, it's Rome in Italy. They have been no, hell no, 4 months. But in other countries, we have seen same, not such a direct rejection on that requisite, but they don't like it, the 4-month one. They prefer the 1 year. And since for families, and I always suggest a 1 year rental agreement, and they can already use it for later on their self appointment. So it's like they have the trouble to get it one time and they can use it twice. So
yes, that's a good point. And we know that EI likes to play on the safe side with these things, of course, and to have a backup and to go for the fullest possible scenario rather than just the minimum, which is tends to be a characteristic of how you approach all of your visa applications, whether they're a DA or something else. Before we get into specific questions from people, Caroline, and thank you so far for your introduction to the DA. Are there any other sort of theoretical parts of it? Any experiences of managing this process that we need to share with people as well?
I also have been recommending people to get the NIF, because it makes them so much easier to rent here in Portugal. And it's much easier on their day-to-day life, because later they will need to enroll their children in schools. And so it's like they are already a step ahead, and again, shows a much more solid process, because we need to show personal investment, not only money-wise, but in investment that the person really wants to come and show that their life is going to be in Portugal. So if they already show steps down that path, shows much more a solidified intention.
Yeah, and aspiration. Okay, so some work in that side of things is also very useful, not just to pass technically, but to show some passion for Portugal, basically, and yes, specific intrinsic reasons why you'd want to be here in this particular country. Anything else to share from your personal experience of dealing with this process?
Right now, my experience is that everything is going very smoothly. The consulate sometimes think that they are legislators and they invent things, but we are here to help our applicants and resolve those matters, because sometimes consulates say, I don't want to say illegal, but they say things that are not actually written in the law, like mandatory. And one of our jobs is to inform our clients to make sure that their rights are not being overruled. So that's one of our jobs.
And that's why it's good to have somebody working for you in this regard, because if a consulate tells you something, you're likely to just believe what they say, right? And not challenge it as somebody who is brand new to the process. So good to have EI working on your side in that regard. And you do actively challenge you where necessary, where let's say they are coming up with some a random factor that's not actually part of the law.
Yeah, it's not every day, but I would say like every month. So yeah, it's not that uncommon.
Okay, interesting. All right, thank you very much. And thank you for your personal insight. They're really helpful. Let's go to a question from Paul. Actively interviewing for remote positions that would support a D8 visa. Is there a good link to point potential employers so they can see what is entailed from their perspective? That's an interesting general question about how employers might be seeing Portugal as a useful place, almost as a perk for employees. Do you hear from employers as well? Have you anything to say on that, in how people can make themselves more attractive to an employer when they're thinking of basing themselves in Portugal?
So I've done a lot of processes, D8 processes, and I've never seen the same employer twice. So I don't think there's like one employer that is thinking about it, but Yeah, and we cross references, so neither my colleagues, neither one employer has been there twice. So I don't think it's a thing.
Okay, all right, and it's a bit of a outside of the scope of this conversation, really. But the finding an employer who might be D8 ready. Do you have any resources with that, or are you more focused on the D8 business end of things?
Great question. It's not
LinkedIn might be a good place to start, right?
Yeah, right. It's not that hard. Once you are ready to go, I will tell you which documents I will need from your employer. And they are pretty simple. They are like, if you are an employee, just like the contract, and I will just need like a formal letter from the employer, consent, giving their consent on the move to Portugal, and that allows you to work remotely from Portugal. So I think any good employer would be, I don't know, without any problem with giving you that letter. So I've never seen a problem with that. So,
well, that's good to know. So it's not too onerous. If somebody is approaching an employer, it's all going to be fairly straightforward and plain sailing from the employer's point of view, and not too demanding from their point of view and from HR's point of view, I guess.
Yeah, most contracts I'm going to say like America and I've seen all around the world already state remote on their contract. So the employer, it's just fine with giving them the declaration, the paper. So they are just like, I don't care where you work from, as long as you have Wi-Fi. So in Portugal, is there Wi-Fi? It is. So
there
yes.
it is. Okay, yes, just so that everybody knows that some of the best in the world, in fact, fiber here. And also, yeah, you do have to be careful. That, again, somewhat outside the scope of this conversation, but for digital nomads thinking of coming to Portugal, do pick wisely. You know, we do have some of the best broadband and Wi-Fi and internet connection in the world, but sometimes if you're out in the sticks, it can be a little bit challenging as well, as some of our community have found. All right, Paul, thank you for that question. Very interesting. We have Courtney's joining us as well, here from San Jose. We're starting our D8 journey with EI in a few weeks. Good news, Courtney. Excellent stuff. And Mike, hi, Carl, and everybody this evening heading to Portugal to set up business and home in the autumn. Great news. Although we can move as EU citizens, I operate remotely with clients in Canada, US, and European companies as well. Is it worth me, as the Brit partner is Dutch, going through the D8, or do I just reunite as my partner is Dutch? Mike has been in touch with Gilda, I think, about this as well. But let's clarify that tonight while we've got you here, Carolina Cunha from EI. If you get the chance to reunite through a partner or do the DA, presumably doing a reunification with a European spouse is going to be easier, isn't it?
Yeah, the reunite. But we are dependent on the Portuguese government releasing slots.
Yeah.
So vacancies for that specific appointment, which is Article 15 of our Portuguese law. But it would be quicker, and they open more often than the normal family reunification slots. But you are dependent on that person, so your permit will be connected with them. So it's if you do your own D8, yes, you are on your own. You can do whatever you like. If you have a permit connecting with someone else, once it's time for renewal, if you are not married yet, you don't have the grounds for renewal. Okay.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Interesting. So there are pros and cons, definitely, to a DA and or reunification with an EU registered or an EU passport bearing spouse. Very good. Thanks for that, Mike. Good point. And I mean, are you seeing people being sort of converting their interest in a particular visa from one to another? Have people changed from D7 to D8, for example, or vice versa? What are you seeing with that, Carolina?
Yes, a lot, because most of our clients have been doing their research for years. Yeah. So, and since this is such a recent visa, someone that last year, before November, would be a proper D7, right now doesn't fit in a D7 category, and we just recategorize them into a D8. So sometimes they come with an idea, and I need to tell them, but that does not exist anymore. I cannot put active income on a passive income kind of visa. So it's everything. So I need to make everything from scratch and do a D8. But usually it's me doing the recategorization and not the persons themselves, because they are so focused on the D7. But I'm like, when they will check your income, they will check it's active. And sometimes they tell me, oh, but my friend last year did a D7 with the exact same job. And I tell them, yes, but the Portuguese legislation, when he did their visa, was different.
Yes.
So now we need, but it's indifferent for them because it's exactly the same rights, exactly the same obligations. So
that's a really good point, isn't it? That things can change and do change, and they're changing at quite a pace. And yeah, I mean, truly, this D8, this digital nomad visa, is a game changer, isn't it? It has caused quite a stir around the world. Excellent stuff. So thank you, Mike. Thank you also to Paul for your earlier question. Let's go to Charlie, who's in with a question as well. Thanks for the welcome. Couple of questions from me. Number one, is the required income 3,040 gross or net salary? Good question, good qualifier there. Before or after tax, pension, etc. So when we're looking at 4 times the minimum wage of Portugal, is that gross or net, Carolina?
That is arguable point. So
okay.
The law says that the Portuguese minimum wage times 4. The Portuguese minimum wage, 760 euros, it's gross. So I think it's arguable that it is gross, but I have seen consulates putting me in writing that for them it's net salary. So once again, the law is vague, and I could argue it is gross because the 760, a person that in Portugal receives that amount will also be after that paying the 11% on social security, and will be remain with like 600 and something. So I could argue that, but it's not a solid unless they have no other choice. I wouldn't recommend. I would say net salary.
Oh, okay. All right. So in the worst case scenario, but you can be argued that it's gross. And presumably with the contract, the bulletproof contract showing you're a digital nomad visa with 4 times the income on there, that should be a good way of getting the process started, right? And argue that point out later on.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's great. That's the first part of Charlie's question. Second part, if applying with a dependent spouse in brackets, does the 50% of Portuguese minimum wage need to be shown in savings or income from the main applicant? That's good. And we need to clarify that, don't we? How does it work when you're bringing somebody with you on the digital nomad visa? So great question, Charlie. Thank you.
Yeah. So it is on the income. So in this case, if someone for a D8, if someone wants to bring their spouse, we would need to split 760 in half and add that half to the 3,040. Okay. And if it is like a child, it will be 25%.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Which connects with Sid's question. So thank you for that, Charlie there. Sid asking, our question is about the amount required to be deposited in a Portuguese bank account, which you might want to address anyway. We are a family of 4, 2 adults, 2 kids. So with what we've just talked about there, what needs to be shown with a family of 4, 2 adults, 2 kids, presumably one of the adults being the D8 applicant, how would that scenario work there, Carolina?
Yeah, so that we just make our counts, we need to make calculations by person, but it's just we make the calculation based on the 750 and 60. Right. So not on the 3,000. So we split the 760 in half, and that is the income for the spouse. And so yeah, it's based on that.
Okay, the fractions thereof. Okay, if you need further clarification, Sid or Charlie, do that after we finish the recording, and we can unmute and you can get clarification there. Keep the questions coming in though for the time being on Zoom. Thank you very much, Mehmet, with the next question. Good evening to you, Mehmet. Great to see you here. As a candidate for the long-term D8, the residency version, when am I required to pay taxes to Portugal? When does taxation kick in this process if you're going for the residency version, Carolina?
They kick in once you have the permit. So, but I always recommend speaking with an accountant on those matters, because those are specific questions, again, person by person, also depends sometimes on the person's income, and it's a very specific, concrete situation, and I can just give a general answer. So I would say once the person receives the permit.
Engage with an accountancy and taxation professional as soon as you've got the permit, or beforehand, to know what you need.
Yeah, beforehand. It's always better to be well informed, and yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, there you go, Mehmet. And you also ask, even though a one-year rental is not by law, are you not able to eliminate it? I suppose that comes to the grey area. You could argue it out, but your first position, Carolina, at EI, is to go for a year rental and make it easier for yourself.
Yeah, yeah, it's the safest option. Again, we always analyze it person by person. Sometimes when a single person, when someone like a digital nomad comes to me and they are single, coming alone with no family, no children, sometimes since they are doing it alone, it might pass. But almost no one comes alone. Everyone brings a wife, everyone brings a husband or children, and on that situation, it's much more solid to present a 1 year. And I always see, as I told you before, they will already be going to need it later down the road, so they might as well do it once and it's done, and they can recycle it and use it on the SEF appointment.
Very good. Okay, Mehmet might like to talk directly after the recording's over to give us a bit of background on that. Thank you for your questions, Mehmet. Good to see you tonight. From Courtney, do we need the FBI background check for the 2-year D8?
Yes.
You do. You're always going to need a background check. Do you want to go into a bit more of the specifics about how to do that? You're not allowed to look at it, are you?
Oh, I've never done one FBI criminal record myself, but
Right.
From what people have been telling me, there's a lot of ways to do it now. They can go through the post offices, but yeah, it is a mandatory document. The criminal record, it's pretty standard for any kind of visa. So
that's good to know. Yeah. All right. Very good. So yes, you will, Courtney. And it sounds like it's got easier in the last few years doing that. Is it okay, Charlie asks, to have a formal letter of invitation from a Portuguese resident? Can't remember the official name of this document, and I'm sure Carolina will tell us, instead of the proof of accommodation. So it's yeah, I think erring on the side of caution, and for the most sort of efficient process, a Finanzas registered 12-month lease is going to be good. But if somebody says you're going to be living with them, what is the name of that document, and is that okay for a digital nomad visa, Carolina?
yes, it is a term of responsibility. And yes, if someone is able to sign one for you, it's as valid as a 1-year rental agreement for the application. So right. Yes, you can do it. It's just like it's a formal, it's a Portuguese form. So it is in Portuguese, but if I can fill it out for the person, and the Portuguese or the Portuguese resident just signs it for them, we just add proof of their ID document, either the permit or the passport, and proof of either the ownership of the house or the rental agreement proof, that just some proof that the person really lives there. And yeah, that is accepted across world.
Acceptable and doable. Sorry, what was the name of it again in Portuguese?
Term of responsibility.
And in Portuguese?
Termo de responsabilidade.
Oh, I see. Not that much different there. So there you go, Charlie. That shouldn't be too difficult. And that's what you need to do. And it's possible and doable. And there are precedents for it. So back to Mehmet again. Is holding a bank account mandatory for the appointment? Now, very Very interestingly here, Mehmet is referring to CEF as APMA already, anticipating that change, which we hope to see in November. But having the bank account, that will need to be shown, won't it, at the CEF/APMA appointment?
So on the APMA situation, I don't know yet, because they said SCF was going to shut down in April, and
Yes.
here we are, it isn't. So hopefully in November, but I don't think it will, but hopefully,
Okay.
yes.
All right, but really good. I think that's a good positive affirmation that Mehmet is thinking in that way, very positively.
Yeah, it's like if thinking that the bureaucracy in Portugal really works.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, right now, you in a SCF appointment, you need to show a Portuguese bank account.
Right.
So I don't know if in later down the road will still be, but we'll see. I cannot predict what has not happened yet. So
Yep, fair enough. You're good, but you're not that good. Okay, very good.
yeah.
So Nancy, thanks, Mehmet, for your questions tonight. Nancy, turning 63 in December and look to retire in 2 to 4 years. We have an appointment in Washington, D.C. on August the 21st to submit our visa paperwork. Would it be easier to submit a D7, or should I do a D8 if I plan on retiring in a few years? My husband is mostly retired. That's a nice condition to be in, isn't it? Mostly retired and is planning to do a D7. Our intention is to live the rest of our lives in Portugal. I'm just concerned about how the D8 being so new, how that will be, I think, for Nancy, and getting it reapproved if I retire in a couple of years. Is that a phone call between you and Nancy, do you think, to go through this personal circumstances there?
Yeah, I have a few situations like that, and I recommend Nancy sending us an email. I can write it on the chat, our general email, because I will need to sit down with Nancy and analyze what kind of income do you have right now? What can you show on August 21? And we need to apply with the facts, what's happening right now, not future
Very
facts.
good. Good clarification. So, they want to know what's happening now, don't they? And yeah, what happens in the future is another matter.
Yeah, but sometimes we can argue, I will be a D7, but I'm already, today I already could be. So sometimes it's arguable, some things. Yeah. So if the person is not actually receiving their pension or retirement plan or something today, but they can show that they will, but they have a way of either by interests or rents or something supporting themselves now, it is still passive income. So sometimes a person doesn't even remember all the possibilities of the passive income. So yeah, I suggest you giving us a call, and I would sit down and analyze calmly all the situation in order for you to apply with the more substantial situation.
All right, Nancy, excellent stuff. And I think, yeah, a call, find EI in the Expats Portugal business directory, and can understand why you're becoming concerned with a different possible option there. But a chat, I think, is worthwhile to calm everything down and make sure you're taking the right route with the facts as they are now, rather than what might be happening in the future. Thanks, Carolina, for that. Paul, just responding to the earlier conversation about finding remote jobs. Unfortunately, says Paul, a lot of the remote postings are North America or US only, even though they're called remote. You can work remotely around North America or US only. Believe me, I've applied to probably 100 plus at this point. Sorry to hear that, Paul, that's such a challenge. And yeah, there has been a change, hasn't there? I think since COVID, when people were, and the pandemic, when people were thinking, oh, I'll go and work anywhere in the world. Some HR departments have tightened up there and aren't allowing people to work anywhere in the world. So good luck with that, Paul. James, my wife had to fight her legal department for months. They were afraid of it creating the need for a legal entity that had to pay tax in Portugal. They weren't going to approve it until we had our attorney talk to them. James, well, that's some bit of a long grass conversation, which we might have after the main recorded part of the session, but that's a good point, and we could return to that for the sake of other people. Marion, how far in advance should we start the process for a D8? Great question, Marion. Well, we know how to talk to you, but when to start talking to you, Carolina, if somebody wants to embark on the D8?
I always suggest that people do everything preemptively. I don't know if this is the word.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you need to do your research with time, so you can be able to proper manage your house, your family, whatever. So, but if you are starting, if you are saying to speak with me to get started right away, I would say like five months before you actually intend to come here. So 5 up to 6, because we can do everything smoothly and calmly, and we can manage our times accordingly, and not having to hurry up and running after appointments. But not always everything is perfect, and sometimes a person does everything by the book, a lot of time in advance, and even like that the appointments are difficult. And yeah, so but on a general terms, I would say 5 up to 6 months.
Okay, but everything sooner rather than later, because you can't make up for lost time with that. So preemptive is the way forward. Thank you very much for that question, and all the other questions that are coming in. A lot of them supplementary, so we will refer to those when the main recorded part of the webinar is complete. And an important one, I think, to include is one from Julie. We already bought a home in Faragudo. Congratulations. Currently listed as a second vacation home, so not a tax resident. If we do a D8 and that's where we'd be living, does that automatically make us change the status and become regular tax residents? How does that work on a D8? Or is that a question for a tax advisor there, Carolina?
Yeah, that is so specific that I'm afraid I'm just going to give you a general answer, because that is so straight to the point that my knowledge is on immigration wise, not tax wise. So yeah.
But you can certainly help steer people in the right direction with that, as can
Yeah. I can recommend a good accountant that we have we trust him very well. So I can also put it in the chat once we are done, so can people reach him if they want to.
Right, excellent stuff. Ray is in an unfortunate sort of loop here, catch-22. I own my property home in Algarve, but Silva Junta Freguesia will not issue proof of residence until I have a CEF appointment, which I cannot seem to progress. Could you help Ray intervene in that somehow and get the paperwork he needs?
Yeah, probably we could put one of our lawyers speaking with their Junta de Freguesia, because likely either the junta did not understood correctly, or is thinking like, I don't know, it must be a misunderstanding, because it does not make any sense.
Well, they need somebody Portuguese speaking to them, maybe, who can remind them of their responsibilities there.
On that kind of region, most likely no one speaks English there. It's a not very city life place.
Okay. All right, Ray. Well, we can return to you after we go to the hands up session and get those personal questions answered, which is a really good reason to be here on the weekly webinar every Thursday evening at 7:30, the Portugal Calling webinar from Expats Portugal. Tonight, we're talking about the D8, the digital nomad visa, with Carolina Cunha. Last couple of questions then in the live and recorded part of the session tonight. That was Ray and Julie. Once the D8 is approved, says Courtney, how long do we have to get to Portugal? And once we get there, how many times can we leave until we get our residency card? Great question.
Yes. So once the visa is approved, you have a 4-month window, which will be written on the visa itself. So you have a beginning date and the end date, and you must enter within that window. So you get your passport stamped when you come in, and yeah, you are allowed 2 entries within the Schengen area. So you can come, go back, and come again.
Okay, very good. Thank you. There you go, Courtney. If you've got anything further, we can talk to you personally in just a little while. Marcy and Jason, we made our appointment with VFS Washington, D.C. this week. One of us is applying for a D8 long-term. One of us applied as an accompanying family member. It looks as though the accompanying category was classified as temporary. Is this the case? So a bit of a concern possibly coming up there.
They exist both. They exist temporary residency and temporary accompanying, sorry, and residency accompanying. They both exist. So
so you have to be specific about what you want in that instance then.
Yeah, it quite depends on the main applicant. If they are applying for a residency visa, the accompanying visa will be also residency as well. But we also need to make sure everything, when we apply, that our request is clear for residency one.
Okay, very good. Caroline, you've been amazing. We will pause the recording there, but not until you, if I want to leave you some space to add anything that you might think might be useful at this point to sum up, or that hasn't been spoken about so far.
So far, I think we have been touching points on pretty much everything, but I suggest that as long as you meet the requirements that I mentioned earlier, we can pretty much argue and find a solution and sit down with the person and really come up with a specific resolution for that person. So I always suggest the people to come to us and speak with us, because sometimes we can think of something or try and make like a team of different people, like a lawyer, a consultant, Gilda, which has a lot of field experience and knowledge, and she pretty much knows everyone everywhere. So and we make a team and we think together and we find something. It's very rare that we cannot do anything. So that's my main focus.
Teamwork makes the dream work. EI there, and the Dream Team session, of course, at 9 coming up a little bit later on. You can join us for that on Zoom and YouTube. Our Dream Team session every Thursday evening at 9 o'clock, where we cover all aspects of moving to Portugal and how Expats Portugal and the team can help you to do that. Marcy and Jason, just a final comment coming in. Thank you, says Marcy. We're signing up for EI assistance as we speak. So that's good news. They're signing up and probably dropping you an email now. All the details for getting in touch with EI, and do mention Expats Portugal, of course, can be seen on Carolina's screen there. Thank you very much so far, Carolina. Great job.
Thank you.